All right, part 3 of the dreadnought. We're going to do some metallics in this section, not oils. So these metallics have had a base coat of, let's show you that. It is this Vallejo Game Air gunmetal. Sorry, that's a better, there you go. Gunmetal grey. So it's got a base coat of that. And that's been dry for a while, I guess 24 hours, something like that, maybe a bit more. And get our big what do you call it, holder for this bit. So we are going to use a different product that you may or may not have used before. It's the Tamiya Weathering Master. We've got titanium, light gunmetal and copper. We're going to use a bit of the titanium and the light gunmetal. It gives it a nice texture. I've used it on my my Warhound Titan last year and really like it. It's yeah, it's just an interesting sort of texture. It's something a bit different. I don't know. Here we go. So all I'm going to do with, again, we're going to use our tiny little cheap brush. We're going to put, this hasn't been, there's been no wash or anything on that at all. We're going to get our cheap little brush and we go like that. We just get it all into the bristles. And we then do it. You can see that it falls away. So you see the little bits there. So, but it gives it a nice sort of buffed metallic look. I really like the look of it. So I'm just focusing on the center of the barrels here. So I'm not sure if you can really see that very well at the moment, but it's actually really easy to apply, and it gives it a nice sort of gradient. It adds, it's not just you can see that, yeah, it's pretty quick. Go like that, and then we get into all of these bits. It's sort of like a dry brush, but not really. You're sort of rubbing it in a bit. So what I will then do after this is I will then add a wash and do this again. So this is really, it's using it as a base. This isn't your final, this isn't the final thing with it. So we go like that. And you can see it's quite metallic. You probably don't need a wash on these gun barrels because you do want them to be nice and shiny. I like to have the worn armor contrasting with the nice pristine metals, the metals that would be, you know, that wouldn't corrode, that wouldn't get environmental damage or environmental effects on them. It's that contrast that makes that weathered armor surface work. Otherwise it's just a big weathered mess. If you don't have it contrasting with areas that are not weathered, then it looks like you've just sort of copped out. So the next bit that we're going to do with this, and this is completely new, this is the first time I've done what I'm about to do now, so we're going to see how we go. I've base coated these serpent trims with just black, Abaddon black acrylic paint, and I'm going to use some of this to very gently just pick out the silver details. And you can see how powdery it is. Can you see it's quite powdery? Blow it, get that stuff off. And I'm just doing it at the tops because I want it to be quite dark. I don't want it to be super ultra shiny. So I'm doing it, this section here is going to be the brightest. So not the heads, but this section here, because this is, I think if you look at where the light would fall, it would fall from here and it would hit here. This is going to be the brightest part. So if we then aim, you can sort of see now I've done nothing back here at all, and we'll just touch it so that it picks out the details, but we're not going to go and use heaps of the stuff. We then just gently, less of it, almost, well, there's basically none down there. We can leave that black. I wouldn't go crazy with that, but you can see that's quite a nice little effect. So the idea that I've had, we'll blow some of that shit off. This is still black here. Can you see that? You can see that. So it's nice and bright here. What I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to get some of this guy. I love this stuff, Kalia Green Shade. I'm going to add a bit of that. We're going to see how that looks. You can do that pretty much straight away. So I'm going to use this brush for that, this is a very old, this is 2 years old, a Winsor & Newton Series 7 size 1, and this is the best brush. I love this thing. I'll get my disgusting cut finger out of the shot. So I'm just going to chuck a bit of that in there. We're going to see how that goes. These pots. Okay. Let's start here. Oh yeah. Oh fuck yeah. Yeah, I like that. We're gonna run a bit of that in there. We're just touching it. We just want a hint of that color. Give that a lick. Oh, it tastes good. Yeah. Just a little touch of the color there. At the brightest part, where I said I wanted it bright, I'm not even gonna touch it. Not even going to touch it in this section. We're going to go, as we move away from that brightest part, that light source, if you will, that's where we're going to add the more of the green, this green shade, and it's pretty subtle, but you can see it, and it's, yeah, shit, I like that. It's good. So I'll do all of it like that, if you can. Just sort of see it, which is very, I think it looks very Alpha Legion. It's nice, and it's shifting. It's sort of, it looks different from different angles, which is the lore behind the Alpha Legion. So I think that's quite nice. Yeah, pretty happy with that. Give that a bit of a lick. Now this stuff, this weathering powder that I've just put on, I'll do some washes with just Nuln Oil once I've applied this stuff, and then again, this all gets sealed with varnish at the end, matte varnish. I don't know, I quite like it matte. If you want it to remain shiny, what you can do is mask it off and just use maybe a satin varnish on there, or I don't know, I don't bother with that. So you can see here, I want this to be a bit darker, so that is just, I'm just putting a bit of Abaddon black on there. That's not metallic at all. It's a bit of very, very, very thin Abaddon black, and it just creates that the gradient there. So the more of these nice little gradients that you can put into your model, especially when it's really weathered, have these nice gradients, have these more technical bits, and it'll highlight the weathered armor, and it won't look like you've just gone, well, I've weathered it because I'm just a bit lazy and perhaps not the greatest painter in the world, which I'm not, but show off your other skills on the same model as the heavily weathered ones, and it will make both of those sections work better. So the heavily weathered bits will look really cool if you've got some really nicely shaded, painted, highlighted parts, some really nice eye lenses, some crisp, maybe some crisp white on this A or something. Yeah, and make those crisp, clean, more traditional sort of details work against the beaten up armor, and that'll make both of those areas look better. And you can see this is, so we were at what, 17 minutes to do the first base coat. It took me about 45-50 minutes to do the trim, to add the browns and a bit more texture. Yeah, so you're probably looking to get to this stage, not including the build, you're probably at about 2 hours here to get to this stage, which I think is pretty, that's all right. Yeah, there we go. So more videos to come.